I'm very happy to be here, very honored, and thank you for your presence. I would like to present myself in three distinct but complementary identities, which I have had throughout the years. In so doing, I will also present my field, costume design. As a designer, I work in the practice of the field of costume. As an educator, I share knowledge on the field, and as a researcher, I develop the field further. I would like to start from the field of practice, using examples from some of my own designs to outline costume design and its agency. What is costume about? Costume is about creating people, representing the human element in stories and in different contexts, people who sometimes, like in this theater performance, look like real people. Sometimes, on the other hand, one needs to create characters that come from other times and from the world of fantasy, like in this production, where there are non-realistic characters in the interpretation of an epic myth. Or human representation can be done playfully, using artistic means in a comic way, like here, where bold colors and stripes, a clownish element, are used to intensify the comic personality of this woman. And although costume is different from fashion in being a motivated design choice and not a personal way to dress, costume at times employs fashion elements or iconic garments like Madonna's signature corset here. The field of costume embraces many different performing and screen arts fields. Here, for example, there is a performance of musical theater, a performance based on music, or, in these images, an opera production that employs elements from commedia dell'arte, a historical type of performance. Costume is also part of film, sometimes through historical research, as in this case, and it may represent actual real people from real stories on screen, like here, where you see the real person in the photograph at the bottom right. Costume is developed through the movement of the performer's body, contributing to dance production, for example, as in this image, while in some cases it may also relate to the representation of non-human animals, like here, where it represents a butterfly. Costume education, as a distinct field of pedagogy, has only recently developed. Our program in costume design here at Aalto University started as recently as in 2003 as an independent program. However, I would like to take you a little further back because my personal background relates to the background of costume education in Finland. So I was in Helsinki already in 1994 as an exchange student at the University of Art and Design Helsinki, which is today part of Aalto University, and I took my first course ever in costume design, taught by the well-known costume designer Maija Pekkanen from Helsinki City Theatre. There was no costume program at the time, but Maija taught for 18 years a costume course at the design department. Today, 25 years later, I am back at Aalto University with a chance to develop costume education and costume research further. And as you can see from this photograph, from the launch of our academic journal that Anna mentioned 3 years ago, I am still in good contact with Maija, who has been my mentor and friend and is also here today. Returning here to develop the field of costume design has been an interesting life circle, giving me the opportunity to bring my knowledge and expertise back to the university that first provided it to me. My students' work shows clearly the breadth of the work done in costume design. This image is from a period film, a quite ambitious production on Catherine, a Polish princess who became Duchess of Finland in the Renaissance times. Costume is also created through process-based collaboration with a creative team, as in the work that we do with the Theatre Academy of Helsinki, with whom we collaborate regularly, in movement-oriented performance here, in collaboration with choreographers. There is also experimentation in large-scale performance, here from a project called Big Stage, where technological infrastructure combines with costume. I have also experimented in working together with my students in project-based learning, here designing costumes together based on the performer's memories using a combination of traditional crafts like felting with contemporary means like digital printing or laser cutting. My students have experimented further with materials. For example, in this dance production, the inspiration for the costumes came from thermochromic materials, and costume elements expanded the body beyond its physical borders. More recently, we had a collaborator with Professor Mario Di Francesco from Computer Science, who is also giving a talk today, working with wearables and software as part of costume, creating interactions in the space, generating a new dramaturgy through costume. We have also done some innovative work on the materiality of costume, going beyond traditional textiles. Here is a former student's design based on the growing of seeds as part of the costume during the performance. And obviously, this costume dried and its life ended at the end of the performances. More recently, through knowledge transfer from the ChemArts project, one of my students developed costume elements made of bacterial cellulose in a conceptual search of the post-human in a dance production, exploring the possibility of bio-costumes. And this was presented in Zodiac, a professional performance space. So through our research in costume design, we are in a position to influence how we think about people through costume and with costume, not only in relation to the past, but looking at the future. I would like to discuss here the term science, going back to the Greek word episteme, which signifies to know, to understand in depth, to be acquainted with, therefore addressing an organized body of verified and documented knowledge that can be communicated and taught. The term, through the ages, was translated through the Latin word scientia, which in Old French became science, passed on to the Anglo-Saxon world as science, addressing a system of knowledge that covers general truths or the world and its phenomena, obtained and verified through testable explanations. Through reflecting on the original meaning, we see the deep connections between science and knowledge, or deep understanding. This brings us back to the title of my presentation, which focuses on the term hard science as opposed to the term soft science, terms which are usually used to compare scientific fields on the basis of perceived methodological rigor, exactitude, replicability, and objectivity, usually considering the natural sciences, such as biology, chemistry, physics, as hard, whereas the social sciences, sociology, psychology, economics, are usually described as soft. I would like to question the relationship between these characteristics and the perceived hardness or softness of science, thinking about it as in-depth knowledge. Can we perceive hard science beyond the so-called controlled experiments and testable predictions, relying on quantifiable data and mathematical models? So I propose instead a focus on the precise framing of a field, defining its core of knowledge, quality of the research material, systematic method, and depth of inquiry. In this approach, costume becomes my episteme, my hard science. To develop my work in costume research, I have established a research group called Costume in Focus, clearly putting costume in the focus of inquiry. Our work aims at bridging theory and practice, generating new ways of thinking on and through artistic practice, and developing a critical discourse on costume. I would like to share with you the frame of our work. Arts-related research, the wider field of our work, takes distinct forms and is used in diverse arts contexts. It is about creating, examining, and interpreting arts in ways that illustrate both the artistic process and the impact of arts. Contemporary research has developed methods for arts-based research, that is, a systematic use of the artistic process, the actual making of artistic expressions as a primary way to understand and examine experience by both researchers and the people that they involve in their studies. While arts-led research leads to new knowledge about the nature of the arts that has operational significance for the specific field of art. In my research, I have worked on developing these terms through the prism of costume to identify and frame the type of work that we do. So we work in costume-related research, which is research about costume, even if it's purely historical or theoretical. It involves the conceptualization and expression of philosophical considerations in relation to costume design and human representation. Our costume-based research concerns researching through costume, through new creative costume work, like in some examples of my students' work already, which acts as a form of research. There, costume as a creative artifact is the basis of the contribution to knowledge. Whereas costume-led research is research on and of costume, leading primarily to new understandings about costume and the wider representation of human existence. Therefore, here, costume practice leads to research insights and theorization. The development of these terms is part of my recent work within the research project Costume Methodologies, building methodological tools for research in the field of costume design, funded by the Academy of Finland for 4 years. We're in a process of articulating these research lenses, setting foundations for future costume research, while also editing an international book. Our most important challenge is to understand the potential of costume, its material, communicative, and performative agency as a means for future representations of human existence. In this image, you can see an example of dissolving bodies, part of my interest in blending the physical borders of the human body with digital and virtual non-human elements. I hope that our work here at Aalto University will contribute to the development of new concepts. We aim at creating new pathways through future costume research, inviting to rethink the human element anew. Thank you very much.